The lantern of dreams. The rain had started again. Soft, steady, like a lullaby whispered by the sky. But there was no comfort in it tonight. Nico stood barefoot in the mud behind the crumbling shed, hands trembling as he stared at the soaked remnants of what used to be his mother's last letter, now nothing more than smeared ink and paper pulp in a shallow puddle. He didn't cry anymore. Not after the third foster home. Not after sleeping in abandoned buses. Not even when the fever took Lola Cinta, the one person who ever treated him like he was worth something. He just stood there, the cold rain running down his face like tears he couldn't spare, and whispered to the wind, "I'm still here." Every day was a weight Nico carried. Every morning, he wove through the edges of town, gathering scraps, trading broken things for food or coins. People saw him but never looked at him, just a boy with too big clothes, too small shoes, and eyes that didn't belong on a 16-year-old. His home, if it could be called that, was a half-collapsed shack tucked into the wild green at the edge of the village. Trees loomed above like silent sentinels, their gnarled roots reaching toward the walls like claws. But it was shelter. And it was his. Most nights, after scavenging and scraping by, Nico would return to the shack, light his little oil lamp, and listen to the forest breathe. That lamp was the only thing he had from his mother, a tiny brass lantern etched with birds and vines, so worn the metal looked like dulled gold. He never lit it for long. Oil was precious. But tonight, after the letter was ruined, after the weight in his chest felt too heavy to carry, he lit it. The flame flickered once, then steadied. And in the glow, shadows on the wall began to move, not as the light danced, but against it. He blinked. The shapes didn't vanish. They twisted, merged. A deer with too many legs. A woman with no face. A door where there should be none. Nico's breath caught. Then, a knock. He froze. No one came this deep into the forest, not at night. The knock came again, soft but deliberate. 3 taps. His heart thudded in his ears as he stood and crept to the door. When he opened it, the forest was empty. Only the rain and the trees. He might have convinced himself it was a dream, until he looked down and saw it. A bundle, wrapped in oilcloth. Carefully tied with red thread. He brought it inside, hands slick with rain and nerves. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a book. Old, bound in leather too soft to be cowhide. No title. No author. Just a small engraving on the cover, a lantern, just like his. He reached to open it, but a sharp yelp snapped him back to the moment. Mango? Nico turned toward the tiny cot near the fire pit. From beneath the thin blanket emerged a snub-nosed, orange tabby with mismatched eyes, one gold, one pale blue. "You okay, buddy?" he murmured. Mango blinked slowly, then hissed. Nico turned in time to see the lamp's flame flicker violently, almost going out. Then something whispered his name. Not aloud. Inside his head. Nico, his skin prickled. He shut the book. The flame calmed. He didn't sleep that night, not really. Just drifted in and out, the book hidden beneath his cot, Mango curled tight against his chest. The next day, Nico went to the market early, hoping routine would shake the unease clinging to him. He met Anna there, bright-eyed, loud-laughed Anna, who ran the herbal stall with her grandmother. She was the only one in town who treated Nico like he was more than background noise. "You look like you wrestled a storm," she said, handing him a bruised apple and a soft smile. "Something like that." Anna tilted her head, studying him. "Nightmares again?" He didn't answer. "You know," she said more gently, "my Lola says the forest listens. That it watches lonely hearts, waits for the right moment to speak." Nico looked up. "Speak?" Anna nodded. "Not with words. With signs. With dreams." Nico hesitated. "Have you ever heard it?" She shrugged. "Sometimes I think I do. But maybe that's just wishful thinking. He started to walk away, then paused. If something strange was happening, something only you could see, would you tell someone? Anna grinned. Depends. Is it scary strange or magic strange? Both, he said softly. Her smile faded. Then yes. I'd tell someone. Even if they didn't believe me. That night, he couldn't resist. He opened the book again. This time, the pages weren't blank. Ink bled across the parchment like it had been waiting for his hands to return. Strange symbols, drawings of eyes and birds, forests that shifted and moved. Then, a page that hadn't been there before. A message. Scrawled in dark red ink. When the lantern glows blue, the path is open. Do not follow the dream too far, or you may not return. He stared at the words. Blue? He turned to look at the lantern. It flickered. Once. Twice. Then it burned a soft, ethereal blue. The air grew colder. The shadows stretched. And from beyond the window, in the depths of the forest, something called to him. A song. Faint. Wordless. But filled with sorrow. With longing. Mango leapt from the cot, tail puffed, staring at the door. He growled, a strange, guttural sound Nico had never heard from the little cat before. Then, the door creaked open. Slowly. By itself. Wind whispered through. And in that moment, Nico saw her. Just for a second. A woman standing among the trees. Her skin glowed faintly. Her hair moved like it was underwater. And her eyes were like twin lanterns, burning blue in the darkness. She raised one hand. And beckoned. The woman vanished the moment Nico stepped forward. One blink, and she was gone, like a breath stolen by the wind. But the sound of the forest had changed. The usual chirps, rustles, and distant hums were now replaced with silence. Not stillness, something deeper. Expectant. Mango hissed again. Nico picked him up, heart pounding, and shut the door tight. The lantern still burned blue. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat by the window, staring into the dark, trying to recall the woman's face, except she didn't have a face. Only light. A soft, sorrowful glow. And in the quiet, a memory rose. His mother. Sitting on the floor, oil lamp between them. Her hand brushing through his hair. If the lantern ever turns blue, Anik, she had whispered, don't run. Don't scream. Listen. He had forgotten that night, buried it deep like so many other things. But now it bloomed like a wound. How had she known? The next morning, Nico walked farther than he ever had. Past the last of the shanties, where bamboo groves whispered secrets to the breeze. Past the rice paddies. Past the shrine of San Antonio, where people left coins and carved wooden chickens for blessings. He walked into the forest proper. Not the playful edge, but the deeper part. The wild part. The trees here were ancient, Malawi and Balit, trunks gnarled like fists. Vines hung like veils. And the air felt thick, like he was walking through something alive. He didn't know where he was going. Only that he had to go. Then he heard it, water. A stream, winding through mossy stone. He knelt to drink, when a voice stopped him. Don't. That water hasn't forgotten blood. Nico whirled around. An old man stood by a crooked tree, leaning on a staff carved with swirling symbols. His hair was white, his beard long, but his eyes, black as midnight, held a sharp, knowing gleam. Who are you? Nico asked, standing quickly. Some call me Totalino. Others call me Bulin, liar. But today, I am your reminder. Reminder of what? The man pointed at the book in Nico's satchel. Of where you come from. Nico stepped back, defensive. I don't even know where I come from. Tadalino smiled, crooked and sad. No, but your blood remembers. The old man turned and began walking. Come. You're not ready to hear it standing still. They walked until they reached a small clearing, where the ground dipped into a natural spring. Ferns grew thick, and fireflies hovered even in daylight. Tadalino sat on a stone and gestured for Nico to do the same. Your family carries a scar, he said, voice low. A wound passed down like inheritance. Once, long ago, your Lola's Lola was one of them. Nico frowned. One of who? Aswang. The word hit like thunder. She was born human. But in her grief, she made a pact. She let the hunger in. Nico's mouth went dry. That's not possible. Aswangs aren't real. Tadalino gave him a long look. And yet a lantern burns blue in your hand. A book writes itself when you touch it. And a faceless woman calls to you in the night. Nico was silent. The old man continued. The curse never died, it only waited. And now, it stirs again. There's talk in the mountains. Cattle found drained. Children falling ill under the new moon. A shiver crawled up Nico's spine. What do I have to do with it? Because they're looking for you. Your blood, your name. You are the last link to a promise broken long ago. And your lantern? He tapped the satchel. It is not just a keepsake. It is a mutia. A vessel of light. And soon, it may be all that stands between you and them. Nico shook his head. No. This isn't my fight. It became yours the moment your mother gave you that lantern. She defied the pact. She hid you. But the curse remembers. It always does. Tadalino reached into his cloak and pulled out something small, an iridescent kabibi, a clamshell that shimmered like opal. He placed it in Nico's palm. This will glow when one of them is near. But it will also show you the truth in shadows. Guard it. There are worse things than aswangs in the dark. Nico stared at the shell. It pulsed faintly warm against his skin. I don't want this, he said quietly. I know. Why me? Because you're still human enough to choose. That night, Nico returned to the shack. The lantern sat cold on the floor. Mango was curled in the corner, ears twitching. Nico lit the lantern. The flame flared, orange-red. He opened the book. A new page had appeared. The new moon brings the first hunt. Mark the door with salt. Speak no names aloud. Trust no shadow with two reflections. Nico's hands trembled as he read. A knock came, sharp, frantic. He opened the door to find Anna, soaked in rain, her face pale. They took her, she gasped. What? My Lola. I found blood on the steps. Claw marks on the walls. They took her into the forest. Her voice cracked. I didn't know where else to go. Nico grabbed his satchel, heart pounding. We're going after her. You saw them, didn't you? Anna whispered. You felt it. Nico didn't answer. He didn't need to. The lantern flickered blue again. Outside, the wind howled. And from the treeline, something watched. Not with eyes. But with hunger. The forest was alive with sound. A chorus of rustling leaves, the occasional screech of night birds, the low hum of insects. But Nico didn't hear any of it as he walked beside Anna, the mutia clutched tightly in his hand, the blue glow from his lantern casting strange shadows across the damp earth. Mango padded quietly at his feet, his fur slick with rain, his ears flicking nervously. They were looking for Lola Cinta. But Nico felt like they were walking deeper into something darker than any forest should be. Each step carried the weight of 1,000 warnings, and each breath tasted of regret. Are you sure about this? Anna asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Nico glanced at her, her eyes wide, filled with both fear and something else, something darker, more desperate. I don't think I have a choice, he muttered, staring at the ground ahead. His voice sounded hollow, even to himself. Anna's pace faltered, and Nico could feel the weight of her gaze on his back. I know what you're thinking, she said after a moment. I'm not asking you to fight. But you can't keep running. It's already in you. He stopped in his tracks, anger flaring up inside him. You don't understand. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be the last of them. Anna's hand shot out, grabbing his arm. No, but you're here now. And you have to decide what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to let the darkness swallow everything, or do you fight for what's left of it? Nico's breath caught in his throat. His heart was racing, a cocktail of fear and guilt flooding his veins. He thought about his mother, about the promise she made him to keep the lantern safe, to keep the curse buried. But her voice, her warmth, felt so far away now. The weight of the mutia in his palm was suffocating. He didn't want to carry this legacy. He didn't want to be the one to stop it, to face the very creatures his ancestors had feared. But what if he didn't? What if, by doing nothing, he let the darkness win? Do you think I want to fight this? Nico whispered, his throat tight. Do you think I want to know what's in the forest, or why my blood calls to it? Anna didn't answer. She didn't need to. A soft rustle ahead caught his attention. Nico stopped, narrowing his eyes as he scanned the trees. Mango's fur stood on end, his body tense. A low, scraping sound came from the shadows, like something dragging along the forest floor. Nico raised the lantern higher. The flame flickered. Then he saw it. A pale figure stepped from behind a tree, a woman with long, dark hair that hung in tangled knots. Her eyes were hollow, black pits. Her mouth was stretched wide in a smile that didn't belong to a human. She tilted her head, her movements unnatural, jerky. Nico's breath hitched, and he stepped backward, pulling Anna with him. The woman's lips parted, and she spoke, but her voice wasn't her own. It was low, guttural, like something crawling out of the earth. He calls to you. The words sank into his chest like ice. Who? Nico demanded, his heart pounding in his ears. The woman took a slow, unnerving step forward, her mouth opening wider, her teeth sharp and jagged, glistening under the lantern's light. He waits in the dark places. He wears many faces. He is the one who calls your blood. Come, child. Come to the heart of the forest. Nico stumbled backward, nearly falling, his mind a swirl of confusion and terror. Anna grabbed his arm. Don't listen to it. It's an aswang. It wants to drag you into the shadows. We have to. Before she could finish, the woman lunged. But she didn't reach them. The kabibi in Nico's hand pulsed, glowing a faint, spectral blue. He gripped it tightly, feeling warmth spread through his fingers, and suddenly, like a great gust of wind, there was a force that pushed the creature back, a barrier of light. The woman screeched, her mouth opening wider, impossibly wide, as she was shoved into the shadows by an unseen force. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the darkness closed in around her, swallowing her whole. Nico stood frozen, staring at the spot where the creature had been just moments before. What was that? Anna whispered, breathless. Nico didn't answer. The silence returned, but it felt thicker now. Closer. As if the entire forest were watching them. The mutia still pulsed faintly in his palm. They continued through the night, not speaking. Nico's thoughts kept circling back to that woman. The aswang's words echoed in his mind. He calls to you. Who? The man who had cursed his family? The one who wanted his blood? The more he thought about it, the more he questioned everything. Was this his fight? Was he destined to stop whatever had haunted his bloodline? Or had he just walked into a battle he couldn't win? But it was more than that. It was the weight of his past. His mother's betrayal. The truth he had buried. The knowledge that he came from a line of monsters, from a curse he couldn't escape. He had already failed, hadn't he? He hadn't stopped the darkness before, and now it was creeping in, claiming his life, his future. Anna's voice broke through his thoughts. "We're close," she said, her voice low, filled with dread. Nico didn't look up, but he could feel it. The air was heavier now, oppressive. A cold that wasn't natural was seeping into his bones. They reached the edge of the clearing where Lola Cinta's home had once stood. But now, there was only a charred ruin, the remnants of stone walls crumbling, the roof collapsed inward. Nico's throat tightened. He stepped forward, but Anna grabbed his arm. "No," she whispered. "It's a trap." Before he could respond, a shadow moved in the distance. A silhouette at the edge of the ruins. "Come, Nico," a voice called. "You are mine now." Nico's stomach dropped. A figure stepped forward, tall, cloaked, its face obscured by a hood. But beneath it, two glowing eyes glinted through the darkness. "The one who calls your blood." The voice was like honey, cold and sweet. And Nico realized, this was no longer just about his past. This was the moment he would face the darkness within himself. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying a scent that was foul, like decaying leaves and something worse. The lantern in Nico's hand flickered, its light barely holding against the growing darkness around them. Anna's grip tightened on his arm, but neither of them spoke. Not for a long while. There was a coldness in the air, a foreboding weight that hung heavier than anything Nico had ever felt before. The figure, hooded and looming, stood just beyond the remains of Lola Cinta's house, waiting. It didn't move. Didn't make a sound. But Nico could feel the weight of its gaze, a pressure that felt like it was pressing down on him, suffocating him from all sides. "You've come," the voice whispered, not aloud but inside his head, clear as a bell. "How brave, little Bana. How foolish." Nico's heart beat hard against his ribs, his mind spinning in a haze. He wanted to run. Wanted to pull Anna close and flee, but something kept him rooted to the spot. The mutia in his hand throbbed once more, a rhythmic pulse, reminding him of its presence. Of the power it held. Anna stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" "Who am I?" The figure laughed, a hollow, echoing sound that seemed to shake the trees. "I am the one who whispers in your blood. The shadow in your veins. The darkness that will consume your heart." Nico's breath quickened. The pain in his chest had nothing to do with fear, it was something older. Something that had been with him his entire life. He could feel it now, like a ghost pulling at his soul. He had no idea what to do. The words of Tatalino echoed in his mind, "The lantern will guide you. The mutia will show you the way." But how could he trust any of it? His mother's warnings, the strange creatures in the forest, the curse that had haunted his family, could all of it truly be real? "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice cracking as he stepped forward. "What do you want with me?" The figure didn't move, but its presence seemed to grow larger. It filled the air, thickening it with something cold and dark. The wind picked up again, swirling around Nico's body, and for a moment, he felt as if he were standing at the edge of a great abyss. "I want what's mine," the voice whispered. "Your blood. Your soul. Your very being. You are the last of them, Bana. The last to carry the curse. The last to know what it means to be one of us." The mutia in Nico's hand began to glow brighter, an almost blinding light that pushed against the shadows, but it wasn't enough. The figure before him didn't shrink back. If anything, it seemed to grow stronger. Anna stepped closer, her face pale. "We can't fight this. We're not ready." Nico didn't turn to her. He couldn't. The pressure on his chest was too great. "We have to try," he said, but his words felt hollow. "We don't have a choice." A low growl echoed from the trees. Nico whipped his head around to see a pair of glowing eyes staring from the forest, then another, and another. Shapes emerged from the shadows, figures that were too tall, too thin, with bodies that seemed to melt in and out of the darkness like ghosts. They were coming closer, circling them like predators. Nico's hands shook. He was holding a weapon, a mutia, a lantern, a book that wrote itself. But what good were these things against this? Why are they still here? He muttered, his mind racing. Why didn't they leave me alone? I don't want this. Anna took a step closer to him, her hand brushing against his arm. Nico, listen to me, she said softly. We can't do this alone. Maybe you're not meant to fight this battle on your own. For the first time, Nico looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of fear and concern. But there was something else there, something deeper. A sadness. You know, she whispered, my family, we've been running from the same thing for years. We've lost so much already. My Lola, my father, her voice trailed off, and Nico felt a pang of guilt stab through him. Then why didn't you tell me? Nico's voice cracked, hurt leaking through the anger that had been building. Why didn't you warn me? Anna flinched, but she didn't pull away. Because I didn't know how, she said. Because I didn't want you to get pulled into it. I thought we could get away. But I was wrong. I thought I could keep you safe. I thought maybe if I stayed away from all of this, the past wouldn't catch up to me. Her words tumbled out, frantic, raw. But the truth is, it already has. And now it wants you. Nico's chest tightened. He had never felt so small. So powerless. The wind picked up again, colder now, and the figures in the shadows grew bolder, stepping forward into the faint glow of the lantern. There were more of them now, he could see their long, twisted limbs and their glowing eyes, their mouths hanging open as if they were waiting for something. Anna's hand was trembling in his. Nico could feel the heat of it, but the cold around them was unbearable. The enemy was closer now. He could feel it in his bones. You've come too far, Bana, the voice in his mind whispered. You cannot run from me. You cannot hide. You are mine. Nico's heart was pounding in his chest, and he could feel the weight of everything he had ever known crashing down around him, of the curse, his family's secrets, the pain of betrayal, and the fear of what was coming. He looked down at the lantern in his hand. He had no answers, no solutions. Only the mutia, only the book. Only the remnants of a legacy he didn't want. And yet, he knew, deep down, there was no other choice. We have to face this, Nico said, his voice hollow but steady. We have to end it here. The figure before him tilted its head, its glowing eyes narrowing. You think you can end it? You think you can stop what's been set in motion for centuries? A shiver ran down Nico's spine. I have to try, he said. The pressure around him was suffocating, but the mutia in his hand pulsed again, brighter now. Suddenly, from the trees, something else emerged, a faint whisper of wings. Something bigger was coming. And it was coming for Nico. The forest had become a labyrinth of shadows. Each tree loomed like a silent sentinel, its branches reaching down to snare them, to swallow them whole. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, broken only by the rustle of unseen creatures. Nico gripped the mutia in his hand, the warm glow of its light flickering weakly against the oppressive dark. It was barely enough to keep the night at bay, but it was all he had. We need to move, Anna said quietly, her voice strained with both fear and determination. Before they surround us completely. Nico nodded, but he didn't speak. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The creatures in the trees, those glowing eyes, they weren't just watching anymore. They were waiting. And the figure that stood before them, hooded and still, seemed to pulse with power. It had not moved since it had first spoken, but Nico could feel it. It was growing stronger. Its presence was like a weight, bearing down on him, pulling at him. I don't want to fight this, Nico murmured, more to himself than to Anna. Then what do you want to do? Anna asked, her voice sharp. We don't have a choice anymore. I don't know. Nico turned to her, his face pale. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can end this. I don't know if, before he could finish, there was a sharp, rustling noise from the woods. Nico's head snapped to the side, his heart racing as the sound grew louder, like something or someone pushing through the underbrush. Nico. His blood ran cold. It was a voice, a familiar voice, one he hadn't heard in years. One he had hoped he'd never hear again. Nico. The voice came again, this time clearer. It was his mother's. Nico took a step back, his mind reeling. No, it can't be, but the figure that stepped into the clearing was unmistakable. It was a woman, cloaked in tattered robes, her face hidden in shadow. But the outline of her body, the way she moved, the way she held herself, was unmistakable. His mother. His heart lurched in his chest, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. No. Nico stepped back, shaking his head. This isn't possible. She raised her head slowly, her face finally coming into view. Her eyes, once warm and loving, were now hollow and dark, drained of any trace of humanity. Her lips parted into a smile, but it wasn't the smile of a mother. It was twisted, sickening. You've come so far, my son, she said, her voice echoing in the silence of the night. I've waited so long to see you again. Nico felt his knees weaken, his heart threatening to collapse in his chest. No, you're not her, he whispered, the words barely forming on his lips. You're not, the figure laughed, but it wasn't his mother's laugh. It was cruel, mocking. Oh, Nico. I've always been with you. I am in your blood. In your soul. You will never escape me. The mutia in Nico's hand pulsed violently, and the lantern flickered as if it might go out entirely. Nico could feel the dark presence surrounding him, pressing in from every angle. Nico, what's happening? Anna asked, stepping forward, her face pale with fear. But Nico didn't respond. He was too caught in the whirlwind of confusion and fear. His mother, the woman he had always believed was dead, was standing before him, taunting him. Her words cut through him like daggers, twisting his heart. Don't listen to it, the voice in his head urged. The figure of his mother was laughing now, a horrible, hollow sound. You think she's here to help you? To save you, the voice continued. She is the reason for everything. She is the darkness. Nico's breath caught in his throat. What do you mean, he whispered, unable to stop himself. What do you mean she's the darkness? The figure stepped closer, its smile widening into something truly grotesque. Your mother was never a victim, Nico. She was the cause. She welcomed it. She invited the curse into your family. No, Nico took a step back, shaking his head violently. You're lying. Am I? The figure reached out a hand, her fingers long and pale. Do you really think she died of illness? No. She sold herself to the darkness, to the aswangs who haunt this forest. She made the deal to protect herself. And she was the one who bound you to it. Anna stepped forward again, her voice rising with urgency. Nico, we need to leave. This isn't her. This is not your mother. But Nico couldn't tear his gaze away from the twisted figure in front of him. His mind was reeling, his heart aching with a truth he hadn't wanted to accept. His mother had made a choice. She had chosen the curse. She had chosen the darkness. You've always been mine, the figure purred. And you will finish what your mother started. You will join us. Nico felt a surge of panic. The mutia in his hand pulsed again, hotter this time, as if it were alive. The lantern flickered wildly, and for a moment, Nico thought it would go out. But then, there was a flash of light, a blinding pulse that seemed to fill the entire forest, and the figure of his mother screamed. And then, she was gone. Nico staggered back, gasping for breath. The light from the mutia and the lantern flickered one final time before steadying, the glow soft but steady once again. Nico? Anna's voice broke through his shock. She grabbed his arm, pulling him out of his daze. Nico, listen to me, Anna said urgently, her grip firm. This is bigger than you think. It's not just about your family. This forest, the curse, it's a part of something much larger. Nico blinked, trying to shake the fog from his mind. What are you talking about? Anna's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. There's something even darker at play here. Something controlling it all. The aswangs, the shadows, they're just pieces of it. And your mother, she trailed off, her eyes flicking nervously to the shadows around them. Your mother wasn't just protecting herself. She was part of it. The curse, it's much older than you know. Nico felt the weight of her words sink in, the terrible realization crawling into his chest. But before he could ask more, a low, guttural growl echoed from the trees. Dark shapes moved again, more of them this time, dozens, circling them like wolves. A new threat had emerged. Something darker. Something far more dangerous. The moon hung high above the forest, a pale witness to the dark deeds unfolding beneath it. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Nico stood at the heart of the clearing, the glowing mutia still pulsing in his hand, its light the only thing standing between him and the abyss that surrounded them. The creatures in the shadows were closer now, their forms shifting and slithering between the trees, eyes glowing like embers in the dark. Nico could hear their breathing, heavy and ragged, the sound of something hungry. Anna stood beside him, her face pale, her hands trembling, but her eyes were fierce. She was ready to fight, to face the darkness alongside him. But Nico wasn't so sure. His mind was a storm of confusion, guilt, and fear. The twist in his heart, the truth about his mother, had shattered something inside him. The realization that she had been part of this, part of the curse, part of the aswangs, twisted his very soul. She sold herself to the darkness, he remembered, the words echoing in his mind. She bound you to it. He clenched his fists, but there was no anger in him, no fire. Just an overwhelming sense of loss, of betrayal, of weight that he couldn't shake. He had to end this. He had to stop the curse. The wind stirred, and from the depths of the forest, something emerged, something taller than any aswang Nico had ever seen. It was more like a shadow, a wraith, its body an ethereal mist of darkness that shifted and flowed like liquid. Its eyes were the brightest white, like the glare of 1,000 stars, and they fixed on Nico with an intensity that made his heart stutter. It stepped forward, its form flickering with a malicious energy. Nico felt his breath catch in his throat as the darkness pressed closer. You, the voice came, not spoken aloud, but inside his mind, echoing through his very bones. You are the last of them. The last of the cursed bloodline. Nico's knees buckled, but Anna caught him, holding him steady. We can do this, Nico, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You don't have to do this alone. But Nico didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of what he had learned about his family, about the curse, and the choices his mother had made, it was too much. You have a choice, the voice continued, mocking him. A simple choice. Embrace your bloodline. Join us, and become one with the darkness. Or die, alone and forgotten. Nico closed his eyes, the mutia burning in his hand, its light growing brighter with each passing second. He could feel the pressure of the enemy's words, could feel the pull of the curse, trying to drag him into the abyss. He could almost hear his mother's voice again, you've always been mine. No, Nico whispered, shaking his head. I'm not like you. I'm not like my mother. Anna's grip on his arm tightened, but she didn't say anything. She knew what this was. She knew what he was struggling with. And the truth was, so did he. He had always thought he was nothing like his mother. He had always believed that he was destined to break free of the curse that bound their family. But the truth was more complicated. The curse ran deep. It was part of him, part of his blood. And in that moment, he realized something else, that was the very reason he had to end it. The mutya pulsed again, this time with an intensity that nearly knocked him to his knees. It was as though it were calling to him, urging him to make a choice. A choice that would either destroy everything or give him the power to stop it. But there was one question Nico couldn't answer: what price was he willing to pay? The creature before him smiled, a wide, jagged grin that made his blood run cold. You see, little Bana, the curse is yours to command. You have only to accept it. Only to embrace your destiny. Nico's mind raced. The mutya, the lantern, the creatures, all of them were part of this. But what did it mean? What could he do with this power? You could control it, the voice whispered, seductive and smooth. You could end the suffering. End the pain. Your mother knew it. She knew how to wield the power. Nico's hands trembled as he raised the mutya higher, its light blinding in the night. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him, the sharp pull of destiny, of the bloodline he had fought so hard to escape. His eyes flicked to Anna, her face a mask of concern but unwavering. She hadn't given up on him. She was standing beside him, ready to fight, even if she didn't fully understand what was at stake. And that's when it hit him: he didn't have to do this alone. He didn't have to be the person the curse wanted him to be. He didn't have to carry this burden on his own. There was still a choice. A way out. But it meant making a sacrifice. The creature lunged toward him with unnatural speed, its clawed hand reaching for the mutya. Nico's heart pounded. The darkness was closing in. He couldn't think. Couldn't move. But then Anna acted. She stepped in front of him, drawing something from the folds of her robes. It was a small, intricately carved knife, shimmering with some ancient power Nico didn't recognize. She slashed it through the air in front of the creature, and the creature screamed in agony, pulling back as if burned. No, it hissed, its form flickering with rage. You don't understand what you're doing. Anna didn't flinch. I do. You've used us for too long. Nico watched in awe as the creature recoiled, but then, as quickly as it had retreated, it surged forward again, its claws swiping at Anna. No. Nico screamed, but it was too late. The creature's claws had struck Anna across the chest, and she collapsed to the ground, gasping. Nico felt a surge of fury, a violent wave of emotion that broke through the haze in his mind. This wasn't just about the curse anymore. This was about them. About Anna. About the world he wanted to protect. In a single, desperate motion, Nico lifted the mutya high and thrust it toward the creature, pouring every ounce of his pain, his guilt, and his love into it. The mutya blazed with a white-hot light, and for a moment everything went silent. Then, with a violent crack, the creature exploded into mist, its form vanishing into the wind. But Nico didn't feel victorious. He didn't feel anything at all. Anna lay on the ground, her breathing shallow, her body weak. Anna? Nico whispered, his voice breaking. But she didn't answer. And in that moment, Nico realized something even deeper, the true cost of his choice. To end the curse, to stop the darkness, he had to sacrifice more than just his fear. He had to give up the one thing he had left. And now, he was alone. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft golden light over the forest. The trees, once dark and oppressive, now stood as silent witnesses to the quiet aftermath of the battle. The air, still thick with the scent of damp earth, was now tinged with the faintest trace of something fresh and new. The creatures had gone. The darkness that had once pressed in on Nico's heart had dissipated, leaving only a lingering sense of emptiness. Nico sat on the edge of the clearing, his legs crossed beneath him. The mutya lay in his hand, its glow now dimmed to a pale shimmer. He had defeated the curse. He had faced the darkness and chosen to end it, but the victory felt hollow. He glanced down at the ground beside him, where Anna lay. She had survived, barely. Her breathing was shallow, but she was alive, though barely. She had taken the brunt of the creature's attack, sacrificing herself to protect him, to stop the curse once and for all. Her chest rose and fell with each ragged breath, and Nico's heart clenched as he watched her, feeling a pang of guilt twist in his chest. He had made the choice. He had sacrificed his mother, his past, and now, he was on the verge of losing the only person who had stood by him when everything had seemed lost. The mutia pulsed weakly in his hand, and Nico's fingers tightened around it. The light flickered, as though sensing his uncertainty. He glanced at the horizon, the rising sun casting long shadows behind him. He had thought the journey would end with the destruction of the curse. But it hadn't. It had only led to more questions, more pain. What do I do now? Nico whispered to himself, the words barely audible. The world had changed in an instant. The curse was gone, the aswangs were gone, but at what cost? He had lost his past, the ghost of his mother, and now Anna was fading, her life hanging by a thread. A quiet groan reached his ears, and Nico's gaze snapped to Anna. Her eyelids fluttered, her lips parted as she tried to draw in a shaky breath. Anna? Nico whispered, his voice trembling with both relief and fear. She opened her eyes slowly, her gaze locking onto his. There was a faint smile on her lips, one that reached her eyes with the same warmth Nico had always admired. You did it, Nico, she said softly, her voice rough but steady. You stopped it. Nico swallowed hard, his heart heavy. But I almost lost you. Anna's fingers reached out, brushing against his hand. I'm still here, she said gently, her voice soothing despite the exhaustion in her tone. We did it together. Nico stared at her, his chest tight with a mixture of grief and gratitude. She had given so much for him, for this cause, and yet, the weight of their victory felt like a burden instead of a relief. The world was safe, yes, but at what cost? They had both paid a price. Anna, I'm sorry, Nico whispered, his voice cracking. I didn't want to drag you into this. I didn't want you to be hurt. She shook her head slowly, her fingers tightening around his. Nico, you didn't drag me. I chose to stay. I chose to fight with you. You weren't alone in this, and I'm glad I was here. The silence stretched between them, filled with the quiet hum of the forest and the distant calls of birds. Nico turned his gaze back to the mutia in his hand, the object that had both saved him and cost him so much. His mother had once wielded such power, too. But she had given in to it. She had sold herself to the darkness. Was he any different? The mutia flickered again, the pale glow casting strange shadows on the forest floor. Nico stared at it, his heart heavy with the weight of his choices. He had destroyed the curse, but in doing so, he had torn apart the remnants of his own family. His mother was gone, lost to the darkness she had chosen. There was no coming back from that. I never wanted this, Nico whispered, his voice barely audible. I never wanted to be part of this world. I never wanted the darkness to touch me. Anna reached up and cupped his cheek, her touch warm and steady. But it did, Nico. And you chose to fight it. You chose to be better than the curse. You chose to change your destiny. Nico closed his eyes, the sting of tears rising in his throat. He had made that choice. He had chosen to fight for something greater than the bloodline that had cursed him. He had chosen to stand up, to break free from the chains of his past, even if it meant losing everything. I don't know if I'll ever be free of it, Nico admitted softly. The curse might be gone, but I still feel it. It's like it's a part of me. A shadow that'll never leave. You're not alone, Anna replied, her voice firm. You don't have to carry it by yourself. You don't have to face it alone. Nico opened his eyes and met her gaze. In that moment, he understood. It wasn't just about defeating the curse. It wasn't about destroying the darkness that had consumed his family. It was about moving forward, about finding a way to live with the scars, to heal from them, and to build something new, something better. He felt the weight in his chest ease, just slightly. The mutia in his hand was no longer a symbol of his curse, but of his strength. It was a reminder that no matter how dark the past had been, he still had the power to change the future. Nico smiled, a small, fragile smile, but one that held more hope than he had ever felt before. "Thank you, Anna. For everything." She smiled back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "There's nothing to thank me for. We're a team. Always." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of their journey finally beginning to settle. The forest, once an ominous, terrifying place, now seemed peaceful, still, calm, and safe. They had survived. They had made it through the darkness. And now, they could start again. But even as they sat there, Nico knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more pain, but there would also be moments of light, of hope, and perhaps even redemption. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Nico looked up at the sky, the rising sun painting the world in hues of gold and pink. He took a deep breath, and for the first time in his life, he felt the weight of the past lift just enough to see a future. The lantern had gone out. But the light remained.